Welcome to the next installment in my video lecture series in economics. And in this particular video lecture, I'm going to be taking a look at the GDP deflator and also how to calculate a geometric mean. So if you recall, calculating GDP we were looking at that as a quantity measure. The GDP deflator is a price measure, and it's just one of many price measures that are out there. But the thing that's also going to be important about this is that to realize that depending on what you select for the base year, the calculation or the answer that you get for the GDP deflator is going to depend upon the base year. So the GDP deflator is sensitive to the base year, and that's why we end up using the geometric mean to adjust for that issue. So when we calculate the GDP deflator, what we're going to do is we're going to be using the same quantities in a specific year, quantity 1 and quantity 1, but we're going to allow the prices to vary from price 1 to price 2. So what we're going to do is look at the quantity in year 1 and look at the value of that based upon the prices in year 1, and then we're going to look at that value based upon that quantity with the prices in year 2. So you can see here that GDP in this particular economy went from $12.10 to $18.40 when we kept the quantities the same, but we changed the prices from P1 to P2. So what we want to do is what is the percent change between $12.10 and $18.40 to calculate the GDP deflator. So what we do is we take the second year's GDP, using the second year's prices. So we have the quantity in year 1 multiplied by the price in year 2. So we have $18.40 minus $12.10. Okay, that's the quantity in year 1 and the price in year 1. And then we divide by the initial year in P1, using P1. So that's $12.10. So we end up with $6.30 divided by 1210, which gives us 52.1%. We do the same calculation, except we're going to be using the weight as the quantity in year 2, and we're going to allow the price to vary from P1 to P2. So when we do that, we go from a GDP of $15.10 to a GDP of $19.20. We calculate the percent change in that. So we have 1920 minus 1510 divided by 1510, and that gives us 27.2%. So I think this illustrates, and hopefully this illustrates to you what I meant when I said that the GDP deflator was sensitive to the choice of base year. Depending on what base year we used, either year 1 or year 2, the quantities in those years, we get a very different GDP deflator, 52.1% and 27.2%. So this is to illustrate what is meant by the GDP deflator is sensitive, the calculation is sensitive to the base year of choice. Now, what do economists do in order to adjust for this? What they do is they calculate a geometric mean between the two GDP deflators that were calculated. So what we do is we take the square root of 1 plus the first GDP deflator. So we have 1.152 multiplied by 1.1 plus 0.272. So it's 1.272. So we have 1.52 multiplied by 1.272. And then we take the square root of that, which gives us 1.39. So we take 1.39 and we subtract 1 off of that. That gives us 0.391, and that is 39.1%. So realize that the geometric mean, what you're doing is you're taking the square root of the product of the two rates based upon the two different base years, the quantity weight for year 1 and the quantity weight in year 2. You multiply those two together and take the square root, and then you subtract 1 off of that answer, which gives you 0.391, which is 39.1%. So I wanted to make sure I went over that. There were a number of students who had issues with this. I think number one, calculating the GDP deflator, calculating the percent change, but also the geometric mean. It wasn't really explicit in the textbook on how to calculate that. Some students went on the internet and found the formula for geometric mean. Others did not do that extra work. So hopefully this video will make things easier moving forward in the course of how to calculate the GDP deflator and how to use the geometric mean to adjust for the sensitivity of base year on your calculations when calculating the GDP deflator.